Good day, everyone. We are Group 6, and today I'll be presenting about American literature with a special focus on one of its most remarkable writers, Edgar Allan Poe. But before we dive into the mysterious and brilliance of literature, let me first introduce the team behind this presentation. Joining me are Esmet, Ilustrísimo, Mahinay, Lagaras, Besabella, Pacaldo, Sigarino, Pausal, and Dakit. Together, we'll explore how American literature began, how it grew, and how Poe became one of its unforgettable names. Now, let me ask you, where do you think American literature first came from? Exactly. During its early history, America was a series of British colonies which later became the United States. So, if America was under Britain, what does that mean for its writing? Well, the earliest literary tradition of America was actually tied to the British literary tradition. Writers followed British styles, themes, and influences because that's what they knew. But here's the interesting part. Over time, America developed its own identity, and this identity reflected in its writing. Modern day American literature is now completely separated from British roots. Why? Because it became incredibly diverse. Different voices, different cultures, and different experiences all came together, making American literature rich and unique. And thanks to this diversity and the breadth of its production, new voices emerge. Voices that gave America its own place in the literary world. One of those voices, of course, is none other than Edgar Allan Poe. He carved his name into history by bringing mystery, darkness, and imagination into American writing, forever changing the way we see literature. Have you ever thought about how powerful words can ever be? Imagine living in a time when a single pamphlet or essay could inspire people to risk their lives for freedom. That is exactly what happened during the early years of America. Today, I will share with you how early American writings, from descriptions of colonies to political essays, helped shape the nation we know today. The earliest American writing was Captain John Smith's A True Relation of Virginia. This was in the year 1608. This was the first written account of the Virginia colony, and it highlighted the opportunities and advantages of colonial life. It is more than just a description. It was also a way of promoting the colonies to people in England, encouraging them to invest or even migrate. Why do you think Smith needed to promote the colonies to England? As the colonies grew, political writing became more important. Leaders such as Samuel Adams and Benjamin Franklin used their work to encourage unity and resistance against British rule. Franklin's witty writings promoted ideas of liberty, hard work, and civic duty, while Samuel Adams emphasized the need for collective action. One of the most influential works of this period was Thomas Paine's Common Sense in the year 1776, which explained in simple and direct language why independence was necessary. His work was so persuasive that it reached ordinary colonists, not just educated leaders. Paine's Common Sense is seen by some as the greatest piece of political writing in what would become the United States, is often cited as one of the key factors in America's Declaration of Independence in July 1776. If you were a colonist back then, would you be convinced by Paine's words?
Later on, as America moved toward becoming a new nation, the writings of Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, known as the Federalist Papers, played a huge role in explaining and defending the U.S. Constitution. Their essays persuaded people to accept a stronger but balanced government. At the same time, Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence formally announced the separation from Britain and set down full powerful principles of equality and human rights. Do you remember the famous line of Jefferson about all men being created equal? If yes, then you know how words are very powerful. If you live in that time, which writing would inspire you more? The call for freedom or the promise of equality? Think about it, because it shows how powerful literature can be in changing our history.
The list of influential American writers we go on and include Washington Irving with his works Salmagundi, A History of New York by Diedrich Knickerbocker, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and Rip Van Winkle to name a few. James Fenimore Cooper and his classic The Last of the Mohicans. Edgar Allan Poe, who is considered the father of short stories, wrote The Raven. The Cast of Amontillado, The Falls of the House of Usher, and a lot more of other seminal works. Herman Melville's Moby Dick and Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter comprise the dark romanticism subgenre. Washington Irving is often called the first American man of his letters, and is known also for his short stories that drew on American folklore. The text specifically mentions his works Salmagundi, A History of New York by Diedrich Knickerbocker, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and Rip Van Winkle. The latter two are particularly iconic tales that have become staples of American literature.
To continue the short list of celebrated American writers, you also have to take note of the works of Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson, who are honored as two of the greatest 19th century poets. The proponents of realism, Mark Twain and Henry James, should be remembered for their writing styles changed the way Americans write their language. The two writers created characters who speak like real people and sound decently American with accents of native to the region. The contributions of some famous American writers to the literature, Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson, are highlighted as two of the greatest poets of the 19th century because of their unique styles and lasting influence on poetry. It also mentions Mark Twain and Henry James, who were known for realism. Their writing style changed how Americans express themselves in literature. Twain and James created characters that spoke in a way that reflected real people, using regional accents and language that made them sound truly American. The passage talks about certain American writers made a big impact on literature. Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson are recognized as two of the greatest poets of the 19th century because they introduced new powerful ways of writing poetry. On the other hand, Mark Twain and Henry James are remembered for realism, a style of writing that shows life and people as they truly are. Their work changed the way Americans use language in writing. They created characters that sounded natural, spoke with real accents, and reflected the culture of their regions. In the discussion, we can say that these writers helped change American identity in literature. Instead of copying European styles, they created a voice that was unique and distinctly American. Their influence continues today as many modern writers still draw inspiration from their originality in realistic storytelling.
At the beginning of the 20th century, American novelists started experimenting in style and in subject matter. Writers like Edward Bellamy, Upton Sinclair, and Henry Adams discussed political and educational issues and the power of corporations in their works. At the start of the 20th century, American novelists indeed explored new styles and subjects, moving from the 19th century focused on realism and regionalism towards experimental forms and themes of social revolt. Authors like Upton Sinclair and Edward Bellamy critique industrial capitalism and corporate power, while Henry Adams' work examined political corruption. These writers contribute to a body of literature that questioned societal instruction and advocated for social change.
American writers also expressed their disillusionment following upon the war. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby, which shows how the dreams and ambitions of the youth may quickly disappear and ultimately lead to disappointment. F. Scott Fitzgerald is the one of American writers that expressed his disillusionment or disappointment, and he wrote the novel The Great Gatsby. This novel is published in 1925. It tells the story of Jay Gatsby, a self-made millionaire, and his pursuit of D.C. Buchanan, a wealthy young woman whom he loved in his youth. This set in 1920s New York. The book is narrated by Nick Carraway, and the theme of The Great Gatsby is that past cannot be repeated and everybody has to move forward in life.
So there are still many other influential American writers that we were not able to mention here. Therefore, we could say that history of American literature is very rich in content and tradition and definitely shaped the writing style of contemporary writers. For discussion, American literature is rich in history, content, and tradition. Many influential writers shape its development, and their works continue to inspire and influence contemporary writers. Literature evolves through time, but it remains a bridge between the past and the present.
American literature at the turn of the 21st century has become democratic and heterogeneous. Regionalism has flowered and international or global writers refract U.S. culture through foreign perspectives. Creative nonfiction and memoir have flourished. The short story genre has gained luster and the short story has taken root. A new generation of playwrights continues the American traditions of exploring current social issues on stage. American literature in the 21st century is undergoing significant transformation, becoming increasingly diverse and democratic. We're witnessing a remarkable surge in regional voices, bringing unique local flavors and experiences to the forefront. International perspectives are also being woven into the fabric of American literature, offering fresh insights and global connections. Moreover, genres like creative nonfiction and short stories are thriving, with writers pushing boundaries and experimenting with innovative styles. The story, in particular, has gained immense popularity, with the short story emerging as a distinct and captivating form. Furthermore, a new generation of playwrights is using the stage to tackle pressing social issues, sparking important conversation and reflections. By exploring complex themes and experiences, American literature continues to evolve, remaining relevant, impactful, and thought-provoking for audiences worldwide.